That's the best I've ever seen.
All you gotta do is switch the name tag and you're good. You switch the name tag,
Yeah,
you're
just
good.
switch the name tag. There you go.
No, it's all right.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go.
It's like, wait a minute.
Paul's gonna be confused when he comes back.
How come every time I see you, you look different? You change your appearance with you.
It depends on what woman he does.
I know, that's what whether she likes it straight or clean.
Yeah, let me get you.
That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't gonna say.
Hey, these, you want to sign these today?
Good,
how are you? She gave me.
So we got the over under.
What was Thursday's date?
Over under 245.
Quietly or loudly?
I'm saying.
We'll know what's up then.
I told her I have to teach at 6:45, so if y'all not done, I'm gonna leave. I'm making a touch door. I have to teach at 7, actually.
So if you leave by 7:15, we'll be all right?
No. And my students will be sitting there like, okay, where is our teacher? And then they're like, catch that. Yes, thank you.
You gotta make sure you have the backup bag ready.
It's over at the T-box.
I didn't mean to grab the purple pen, but I did. There's that one if you want the same ink for yours.
Sure, man.
Purple. All right, thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Our mayor, T. Ross Young, cannot make it today, so I will try to conduct this meeting in his absence. We do have our agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any amendments they would like to make to the agenda? Council or staff? All right, so I will just need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I will so move, sir.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hinkle. We have a motion. Is there a second?
One second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And so the agenda is adopted. Thank you very much. That brings us to general business. So our first item will be mayor and council comments. I will start with Councilmember Now.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have two things, and I have a question for the chief, and I'm not picking, this is just a question, because I like the money. I was coming home from Hickory on Friday night, after the football game, and I saw our police officers directing traffic outside, after the game on the road. I know we have SROs there, but are we being reimbursed for like that football games or whatever kind of games or special events?
Anything like there are 6 officers work every football game, and they are paid by the school.
Okay, so the school is paying them to direct traffic
And
afterwards?
to provide security during the game.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah,
my
it doesn't
question-
come out of our budget.
Right, thank you. My second thing is, on Wednesday, we're gonna be approaching the 23rd anniversary of September 11th, 2001. And I'd like to take a moment that we remember our victims and our heroes that day in Washington, Shakespeare, Pennsylvania, and especially New York City. I was a first responder that day with the NYPD, so I saw the devastation, and I also saw what we did as the United States of America to come together and work as one for a common goal. But if we can remember, especially our victims and our heroes that day, let's not forget them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hinkle?
Nothing more than to thank Councilman Now for making his comments about the upcoming Wednesday date. A very horrific date, but unfortunately one we should never forget, kind of like Pearl Harbor and some of the others we learned in U.S. history class and so forth. And I want to thank him for that, and that will certainly be in our hearts on that day. And may all Americans never forget. That's it, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Harris?
I was in that traffic Friday night, so I appreciate your officers for being there during the game. There was a lot of people in that game. We appreciate them for being there and being so attentive during the game. I pay attention to that, and most of them know who I am now. So they speak and talk, and it's just good to see them being so friendly and so attentive, like I said, at the game. So we appreciate them for being there. I also wanted to say, if we can just keep in prayer the thoughts and prayers, whichever one or both, the students in the school in Winder, Georgia. I think it's called Appalachia. I can't say it right, probably. Okay, that one. What he said. The school, no laughing matter, but that was just a tragedy, and just hoping that all of our students stay safe in our schools. You know, as a parent, you don't expect for your kid to not come home from school, and the teachers who were lost in that as well. So, on a good note, I enjoyed the community pep rally that we had with the school the other day. It's always good to see. I say that every time we have something. I enjoy it. I just enjoy seeing our people out and supporting our schools, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Jairzinski.
Resonate as the other council members have shared, and also we had the fair come and go to the town, seemed to be without any kind of serious hitches or incidents. And I'd just like to address something with some of the school traffic, as there's been a lot of chatter about, and some people reaching out. The time that parents are showing up to drop their kids off, like the drop off doesn't start till 8, they start lining up at 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, and it's extending deep into some of these neighborhoods. Is there anything that could be done to delay their arrival?
The problem with that is, we can't control that. So the elementary school begins letting students in at 7 o'clock. That is our biggest school traffic problem. To alleviate that problem, because it was backing up all the way down Rumpel Street and then down Harris Street into Wagner Street. And then Wagner Street was backed up both ways. And we would have people passing on Wagner, that aren't related to school, so it's creating a major danger of crashes. So we diverted them down Lake Circle, which would make some of those residents happy, but, we were looking at, it's a safety issue for Wagner Street. So we divert the line, wraps around there, that would extend it to keep it from going out there. So the elementary school did start opening earlier. They're not supposed to, I think, till 7:05 or 7:10. They backed all the way up to 7 to try and get people in there. The main problem is, out of a almost 900 student school, over half of the students do not ride buses. So it's not a lack of buses, it's that parents choose not to have their children ride buses. The middle school line, they don't start letting students until 8:15, and it doesn't create as big a problem. And in the high school, it's just how it's always been, still the same time opening up. So we've looked at every option we could, and the best thing was to divert traffic into that neighborhood.
So is this potentially a county or school board issue then, maybe with not having enough traffic ability for all these students that are being brought in by parents and not buses? I mean, just raise the question.
If I may, it absolutely is something that they should have better discussion with us on the solution. The one thing I will add is the chief was 100% correct on the time, but we do have a certain population of parents that not only has an elementary child, but they have a middle school child, so they don't show up early to drop the one off, go back home, pick the other one up, and then show up, or it's a 2-hour process. So some of them show up early enough with the elementary child, drop them off, and then go back and get in a long line so that they can drop the middle school child off. For whatever reason, the school system this year is allowing the schools to dictate when they are opening and closing. Unlike it used to be, to where every elementary school, this is the time, every middle school, this is the time. They're allowing those faculties to decide based off of their funding to open or close earlier or later. I don't understand it. I've not had the conversation myself, but the middle school, if their hours would change, I think you would also see a part remedy, not a complete one, as the chief pointed out. Parents choosing to drive or using other family members to drive their children to school is the main problem. It's not so much that there's not enough buses, as he said.
And the last thing I'd like to mention is great seeing that Wagner Street is under construction to be repaved, much needed, a bumpy ride.
Well, a couple of us don't like it. It's keeping us up at night, and I thought about making a Facebook post.
I live on it and
think that's
slept
a
with my
great
window
idea.
open and was surprised to see it totally stripped this morning, so.
Oh, they did it all night. I'm well aware.
I didn't hear a thing. That's all.
That's all. Thank you very much. Yeah, I echo those comments. Yeah, and then we can move right along to the second part, which is the introduction of planning and zoning board applicants, and I will turn it over to our town manager, Ron Watt.
Andrew, if you would announce, I think we have both here.
Sure, we have two vacancies, both for inside residents of town on our planning board. Karen Van Vliet resigned effective September 1st. And then if you remember correctly, we had a member, Mark Michelle, who was determined that he actually did not live in our jurisdiction. So that was a few months back. So we've got those two openings to fill. So this afternoon, we've invited two applicants to come in front of you and kind of introduce themselves and take any questions the board may have for you. So first, I'm going to introduce Nancy Draves.
As you all come up, please come up and stand over here so they can meet you. But just a reminder to our applicants and to you all, even though they're coming on, in to be interviewed and to meet and greet with you all, if you have any questions, you certainly can ask in open meeting, or if you have any that you would like to send to me that I can send to them prior to Thursdays, or if you all are just completely enamored and want to do so tonight, that's your prerogative. You're not going to hear a soundbite from this, but it's a microphone so people watching on YouTube can meet you also. Just introduce
Question.
yourself to everybody.
My name is Nancy Draves, moved here from Michigan 2 months ago. Was very, very involved, almost too involved in my other location. And, but I want to help. I want to do something here. I love Troutman, and I was telling the gentleman that's head of the planning board that I'm very impressed. Your roads look good. I love the trail and the dog park and all the facilities, and that everything's maintained so beautifully. I'm really impressed. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ms. Draves, what brought you to Troutman?
My daughter lives here.
Okay.
Came down to help her. My husband retired. It was a hard move for me.
Okay. She lives here in town as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Nancy, what are your thoughts on planning and zoning? I think you probably served on a similar board back up in Fenton, Michigan.
I was telling him, this was, when I moved to Fenton, Michigan, the first board they asked me to be on was the planning board. It was on for, I think, 2 terms, and that was the max. I have a question for you. Do you have a master plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Sure do.
Because that's crucial.
Yes. Okay, okay.
So,
Were you still on the city council when you left up there?
no, I had just gotten off the city council when I was up there.
They haven't removed your name yet.
Oh, haven't they?
They have not.
Well, I was very involved. I was on the Arts Commission, started the Arts Commission with another gentleman, was on the Beautification Board, was on the Library Board. We have an art walk every summer. I was on that board. I was on the Jingle Fest board. I was busy.
Very involved. You're right, yeah. No, I had time to breathe.
I know, I was too involved, I think.
Okay. Well, let me ask, obviously you've been here, visiting your daughter too, you know, our situation, we're growing leaps and bounds here in this
no,
Troutman,
I couldn't believe
in this
it.
county. And Troutman is certainly, we're caught between 2 growing cities, Morris, Statesville, and doing growth of our own. What is your philosophy on that, how to
Well,
kind of
as
manage
long
it?
as you know what you want Troutman to look like and how you want it to evolve, I think you're in good shape. It's when you come in and people start putting businesses in residential and, things like that, then you have problems. I think the problem we had in Fenton, and I see it here too, is rentals. You know, if you could keep, but then you've gotta have someone that's gonna monitor that type of thing. But that's where you seem to be lacking, well, all towns lacking is the upkeep on these rentals. You probably realize that too.
Oh, yes, yes, ma'am,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
I don't know what you can do about it though.
Anytime somebody's in property that's not their own, they're not gonna pay as much attention to it. Sometimes you have landlords that don't need to pay as much
Yeah, yeah.
attention as they should.
You've gotta have some teeth in it,
Right.
in some laws or rules that you can go after the landlords, really.
Sure, that's good. Thank you, ma'am, thank you.
There's
Any
two
other
of mine, I'm done.
Yeah, yeah.
The two, I was gonna ask the same thing, so great answers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Okay.
you, thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Greg Weiss, who lives at 230 Wagner Street. Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Greg Wise. I go by Goose. I have been a resident here for a little over 2 years now. They're at 230 Wagner Street. And, yeah.
The goose.
I heard that. Are you the one they call duck?
I'm the one.
Like
Who you
already.
talk to, it could be someone else's phone.
Where you say you've been here? I'm sorry, go ahead, Eddie.
Do you have any background in planning or zoning, or have you served in a government position anywhere else?
I have not. This would be my first jump in. I've been a part of, the company I work for is Oxford House. We do transitional living for men and women in recovery. And in that, I've helped, here in North Carolina, we have 316 houses. And I've helped kind of look at the big picture of that, of where we need houses, where, you know, we need to move houses away from, that kind of thing would be my experience in that.
And your opinion on growth, industrial and residential?
I love the growth we're having here in Troutman. The concern I have is getting and I'm seeing, I live right there on Wagner, seeing, you know, the roads getting redone, but making sure that we stay ahead of the planning when it comes to the roads and all the public utilities.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing in the state of North Carolina, we're dictated to by the Department of Transportation.
DOT, yeah.
DOT.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can't hold back growth because we don't have the infrastructure right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know.
And I do see the town, you guys have stayed ahead of it as much as you can. And with the lights I've seen go in, just straight down, I guess, perf down there. But just some of the things I've seen, I mean, you're doing as much as you can.
Thank you.
Just curious, I saw that your background computer science. You talked about streamlining processes. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but have you thought about any processes that you've seen that need to be streamlined? Here in Troutman?
I have not, actually, no. But again, I really haven't looked much into it. But
Okay, no problem, I'll just.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Councilman Howe said, that, you know, we are limited as to what we can do with our infrastructure, certain infrastructure.
Right.
Such as state roads, putting in traffic signals, unless they're on town streets. And I know you had in there where you'd like to, you know, get with DOT and so forth and so on, and I applaud you for that. But as someone who has been part of that, along with the town manager, others, that's a task within itself, that can be frustrating time to time. And as Councilman Howe, we, you know, we've got to have smart growth, but we can't be held hostage by, the State Department of Transportation on that growth, because they're slow to move, and they are very slow to move. So I just want to make sure you understand that, you know, you will face some people who, you know, have moved here, and now they want to shut the gate, and nobody else comes, you know, which is kind of an oxymoron, if you will. So you will receive it, but, you know, you have to be respectful of them, but again, you've got to handle smart growth and be conscientious about it, smart about it, if you will, to where we just can't stagnate, waiting for a state agency to do what they should have done a long time ago and shouldn't be doing now. So, I just want to understand, you understand that, and, that you're in agreement or, you know, can deal with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the fact that it's mostly single-family dwellings going in makes a big difference. It's not, you know, a bunch of apartment complexes where you have that much traffic coming in. It's kind of, it feels like it's growing organically, at least for me.
Right. Well, it does, and it can feel overwhelming. But again, we cannot be held hostage. The town cannot, for what we do with our growth and our plans for the future, by somebody in Raleigh, if you will. And, you know, again, that's the sort of thing that, it's a headwind that you will have to deal with on planning and zoning. Even though you guys are just advisory, you know, we listen to you. So, you know, I'd like to know that we're getting good, smart advice, you know, from that committee we can depend on.
Okay.
You mentioned you have background at using Robert's Rules of Order. I think as we all know, the planning meetings can get pretty contentious at times. Do you have experience with implementing Robert's Rules to kind of restore order and keep things at a peaceable manner?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, I work with Oxford House, and our house is run democratically, and they use Robert's Rule of Order to run their business meetings once a week. So I've worked, and I'm no longer working with the houses, I'm doing IT now, but my first 6 years with the company was working directly with the houses and training the members in the houses to follow Robert's Rule of Order, and just to make sure that their meetings, because you can imagine those meetings can get a little heated with discussions, and so making sure that they are implementing and following Robert's Rule of Order was, you know, it was key in a successful house.
Is there anywhere that you'd like to see Troutman grow or maybe stop growing that would gear towards your decisions?
No, not necessarily. Like I said earlier, it feels very organic, the way it's growing, and can't stop it, so, yeah.
So you're doing IT now for Oxford House?
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah. So I'm work from home, and so making meetings would not be a problem.
So you see all the traffic?
I do. And today I'm hearing it.
And he still didn't complain.
Are you a little tired today? You said you were over on Wagner Street.
Yes.
Keep you up?
All right, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You all do not have to stay here for the rest of the meeting if you don't wish. If council has any questions of me or you all between now and Thursday, we will be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and due to the mayor's absence, I would like to ask the town manager how he would like to proceed with our next agenda item.
This will be for Thursday night, and I believe the mayor, he's on the phone with us, by the way. We will, have been asked to do the joint proclamation with Iredell County Board of Commissioners, Town of Morrisville, City of Statesville, and of course our town of Troutman, to have Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I think that's a big key. Are you all trying to break the tables?
Yeah.
I think they already did.
But yes, that'll be for Thursday and not a problem. Also, I'm sorry, I'm getting to be in your lane. I apologize.
All right, but I do look forward to that presentation Thursday. But that will bring us to menu item B here, which is staff items. So town manager and staff comments. I'll turn it over to town manager Ron White.
We, very briefly here, the only thing I'll add, Councilman now reminding us that we're coming up in a couple days on the 23rd anniversary. He and I both have had first responders, whether they be firemen or officers that responded that day, that died later. They didn't die that day, but they died later because of things that they breathed in and their bodies absorbed because of that tragedy, and I echo his sentiments. It's something for us all to remember. As far as other staff comments, I don't think we had it as a specific item. Austin, if you will, bring those signs up. Yes, sir. We, after you all approved the signs for us changing, having the town logo, we went back and I wanted to put something that showed Troutman, to a couple of you all's comments, a little more defined. Also, in speaking with the police chief, we wanted to make sure that these signs were reflective, DOT standards. So that was also the homework assignment given to Austin. So the sign that he is holding up is reflective. And of course, I think, depending on what you all's opinion is, I think by having the left side white with the town's name in green is actually a better aesthetic than the original version, if you hold it up, Austin, of that. I think people will definitely see when they're looking for new street, if they're following MapQuest or Google, that sign he's holding up will identify it as a street better so than our first rendition. But unless you all have any complaints or issues, we will proceed with that one. That will be DOT reflective, and what we're waiting on prior to us going forward, and he may have got it today, I just hadn't talked to him, is to find out what the life expectancy of those signs, barring them not being stolen or vandalized, what is the lifetime expectancy? And as long as it's as good as what we have been receiving, we will proceed.
5 more years.
That's pretty standard for reflective signs, that they'd be 5 years or longer.
These would be 5 years longer, so these would be about 12 years.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, come again now. What
It'll
was-
be about a 12-year life expectancy of the new sign with the
okay.
white.
I understand you still got some questions to ask, but once you start, is this something you will do, over a 6-month period, or 4-month period, 3-month, or as a sign?
Our intentions is to begin and complete within a year. Staff will still be doing their normal jobs, and we also are working with Andrew. One of the things that we have to remind you all is, like new subdivisions when they come in, our intent in wanting to do these style signs is to let citizens know this is a town-maintained street. Well, if it's a neighborhood that's not, we're still trying to decide how we want to cover up that paddle so that it's not designated as a town street yet. That's when I say it may take us a year or so. If the signs are available, they can do it within a month. But I would prefer they stay on their normal task, and then we incrementally replace them as we go forward. So a year's the time frame that I'm saying we should be done by. That way it don't have us to make this a priority over normal workload.
And when you were talking about in the cases of where you would cover up the paddle temporarily in a new development, would be something you could then remove later when it is accepted by the town.
Even though I agree with Andrew, I don't know that using duct tape is necessarily the best aesthetically, but they do make white duct tape that could be placed as a loop around it, and then the adhesive remover when you take it off. That it may be something that simple that we do, but trying to put a sleeve or a cover over it, we haven't found a process there that works.
Ironically, duct tape's what I thought of too, but I wasn't going to admit it. I was going to laugh at that. That came to my mind first thing too. So you're not alone, Andrew.
Would the upgrade to the white area, reflective area, be very easy to put a magnet over it to be removed when it becomes a town street instead of adhesive duct tape and pulling?
True. Anything else on that one? All right, what we have now is, if you would come up in this area, you're welcome to bring her if you like. It's the discussion of a request for water service at 203 Timberlake Drive. We have the person inquiring. I mailed you all, or I'm sorry, Kim made you all copies of all the documents that he provided to us in reference to his request. he and I's had several conversations. Let me rephrase that. We had a conversation, but he has had several conversations with staff about his request. And without me getting in all of that, sir, feel free to step up and explain your thoughts.
Hi, I'm Howard Culbreth, and my wife and I are residents of the town of Troutman and have been since 2013. In 2008, we purchased a lot in the Parkwood section of Falls Cove, which is off Morrison Farm. And Crescent had developed that and put the water system in with the valve boxes for the meters and the taps and so forth for the town to bring water out there, and at the time it wasn't in the city. In September of 2008, we received a letter from the town of Troutman giving us the option to be annexed in, and then the water rate would be less, and that was an optional thing for the lots that had been sold in there at that time. In 2011, Crescent had the rest of it annexed in. 2011, we purchased the lot next door, we built a house on it, and moved in 2013. That one is in the town of Troutman. And so all along, we've got a meter box there. There's 8 other lots on our street and in our section that are not in the city, but they receive town water. We've always been under the understanding that, you know, that water is available to us, the meter box is there, the tap's in place, and we're in the same class with the other neighbors that are in that section that receive water. We pulled a building permit through the county that went through zoning and all in March of last year. We got the private septic system that was approved, and the whole building process has gone on, and then when I came in to get a water meter put in and went into the office, they told me it wasn't available because I was outside the town. So I respectfully, request to be grandfathered in and be in the same category as the other customers of the town of Troutman for the water system that are in our neighborhood and on our street.
So our town told you you weren't in the town limits? That's why you couldn't access the water?
Let me explain. His current house is in the town limits.
Okay.
The lot that he originally purchased first is not in the town limits. The developer at that time chose to annex a lot of the lots when given an opportunity by then town manager David Salibi. All of them were not. I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% are in the town limits, and people that built afterwards automatically were in the town limits because the land already was. About 10% of those lots were not, never were, still are not. I'm not aware of any history to where one of those, because the developer at the time, as he just said, did put in water lines and then put in water boxes, which is basically where the meter goes if and when water is turned on. That was installed by the then developer before they went bankrupt and everything was sold. So he is in one of those situations to where we changed our policy because we have allotment amounts of whether that be water or sewer. And we had new properties, for example, off Old Mountain Road that was coming into the town, and they were joining the exterior rate. Once we provided that information to then council, it was decided that we wouldn't allow that anymore because people not paying the deal of all of our amenities were still close enough to be using the amenities, and it just did not make sense that the town residents' allotment rate would have to change based off of people who were not paying town taxes at a later date and time. In this situation, he is one of those to where several neighbors, the water lines was put there, there is no new construction, it's not a didn't know about it type thing, but because for whatever reason all the lots were not annexed into the town at the same time, the only ones that were annexed in, I will say, was the developer of Crescent Resources. The lots they had already sold, they never were and never did come back and join the town. But several of those customers, because the water lines were there, were allowed to join on the system and then pay an exterior rate. And that's basically what he's asking is, hey, this is what's happened to 8 or 9 of my other neighbors and they done it. Just because you all changed rules, I should be grandfathered in to be able to do the same thing they did. Is that paraphrasing?
That's very well said, yes.
So this gentleman is paying town of Troutman taxes as of right now.
In the house that he lives in. This lot that he's talking about
He's
is
looking for the
not.
other lot.
Right.
Correct.
Oh.
He's wanting to build on another lot. He is currently a town resident in our town,
Gotcha.
And have been
paying
since
everything,
13.
and has been since 13.
Okay.
This other lot is not in our town and never
This
has been.
gentleman's looking for the other lot,
Correct.
Yeah,
which will not become a tax-paying
That
lot.
is correct. At this time, that's,
And I currently with it, with, my home and boat and cars, I'm paying over $8,000 a year in town of Troutman taxes, just, I pay that much to
just
the county.
to correct you, half of that goes to the county.
No, that's just.
You, just our part's
That's your
8,000.
part.
Okay, okay.
It's a lot of taxes.
We need to tax him some more. I'm kidding.
No, it clears up a lot.
Is there a reason you don't have this property, this lot?
Well, I'm currently paying, like I said, you know, the large amount of taxes. And, you know, that one's just not been in the town, and the water, the box is sitting there, and like I say, just requires, it's not any tap needed or anything, it's just a meter being set. It was always available to us. Again, we got a letter from the town back in 2008, giving us the option, if we wanted to be annexed in, that would give us lower water rates. So the water service was there from the very beginning when the developer put in all the, you know, the meter boxes and everything like that. So we've always been under there. Somewhere along the way, the rules changed. And we just want to be in the same class of people. We've got other neighbors that are on that street, like there are 8 others that are not in the town, but are getting town water.
Are they getting town water?
Yes.
You did, right?
I would be the exact same.
I
as the
remember you
8.
were talking about the 9, and all of them, I think you said, except you,
Right.
your lot.
Mhm.
Sir, are there any others that are in his situation in that same neighborhood? I think it referred to class, and when we were looking at a legal paragraph 2 there from the School of Government, you know, they refer to that as a category, I believe, or something.
That was information that he got.
Okay.
We did not.
Let me ask you, do we have any others close by like in his type situation that maybe in the future would want to do the same thing?
Yes.
How many do we have that you, well, I guess you would, you know, are there any others that are not on there right now, that live there that are not on there right now? Are using our water, you know, live in that area, they've got the ability, but are using our water.
There's 8 now that currently do. Their totality in that area is somewhere around 20 lots that could petition for the same thing, of staying outside the town limits and getting the water. As far as how many lots actually have the water line in front and have a meter hole, what do you all call that? Meter box. There, I can't give you an honest answer. I would assume it's at least 4, if not more, that have that scenario that's there. The other lots may have water nearby, but not necessarily the meter box on the property.
So there are 4 individuals right now that you're aware of that possibly could follow this gentleman's, you know, if we agreed to it, that could come and say, well, you did it for my neighbor, therefore others, individuals.
Correct. And again, not to cut hairs, but one of those legal opinions he sent us talked about similar category, but if you read the next paragraph, it allows the municipality to change the way it's doing business. For example, at the time all these properties were annexed, we had water contracts in place. Since that time, the water contracts have been redone and are no longer applicable. So the statutes and the UNC School of Government's opinion does allow for the government to change based off of criteria and it not be a penalty so to speak, because that's how, if I were in his shoes, I would perceive it, as you're penalizing me because you changed your rules. But it does allow that because business does change. And like I said, we have two different contract rates now that we did not have at the time this situation occurred with his neighbors.
We'd be, if we agreed, we'd be paying the outside town rate, for water usage, as well as what the box fee, availability fee, tap fee.
I would have to research whether or not the developer paid that fee at the time, or if it's a fee that he would have to pay. That is correct. Off the top of my head, I don't know that answer because one question had to be answered before the other one was even relevant.
Let me ask you just one more question. These four that are still possibly, if we were to allow him to tap on at the outside rate, would it be prudent to perhaps send a letter similar to what David sent back in 2009, offering and putting a finality date on that letter and saying, you know, you have until December 31st of 2024 to answer, you know, otherwise that, you know, it's off the table and you can't come back 5 years from now and want to be grandfathered in. Would that be something that?
Let me clarify your question. Are you asking, can we send them a letter saying, hey, you hook up at the outset rate by this date and time, or you follow the rules going forward of having the annex? Is that what you're asking?
Well, we could do either. We could give
Because
them the options.
if we, right now, all of them are in that same boat of, well, I've been given the opportunity to annex, but what's the penalty to me if I don't? So why would they? And no offense, but even the applicant here, why would he annex into the town? It don't matter if we give him a date between now and January or whatever. So to me, if we're offering that as an option going forward, then it's either hook up to the water by this date and time, or it's off the table and then you have to annex.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, yes. In other words, I'm looking at the future that if one of his neighbors, one of these four individuals there that have the opportunity to be grandfathered in, if we so chose or allowed, you know, so well, you did it for my neighbor, you know, that we give them that opportunity, put a date, as you say, or it's off the table, you'd have to annex, period.
For the lots that are identified in this neighborhood, Andrew can help me identify those, and yes, sir, to answer your question, if that's what you all choose to do, we certainly could do that. For the other land that's in the area, we can't because they've not been properly subdivided, but there are some other projects that are nearby that just have not been provided to us as subdivided maps.
At least we'll be
These-
doing.
these-
I'm sorry.
Then these most likely don't have water boxes and all, you know, in the infrastructure, if they haven't even been subdivided yet. Is that fair
I
to
would say
assume?
that's a good assumption, but it's not necessarily correct, because there's one in particular, they can still either run a well, a community well, and they're doing their own lots already. They've not made the decision if they're gonna do the community well or eventually annex, and the lots are already cut out, so it's not something that we would necessarily have to be a part of, but I would say you're 90% probably correct. If they've not, we don't have a plat, then there's not an intent.
And they probably got a copy of this letter.
I don't know the answer to
Are these town maintained streets?
that. No, those are DOT.
Okay. On this letter here, I just have a couple of questions about this, like the police patrol. So if where you're at now, where he's at now calls the police, Troutman PD shows up?
Yes, him being a town
But
resident,
next door, the sheriff would show up?
well, it just depends, and the police chief is here to answer. That's some of the things that have been thrown back in our face. We're not gonna quit patrolling just
Right.
because they're not in our town, and that's true. Our police is still gonna go through.
Right.
Our police winds up answering a lot of calls in this area already that are in the county because we are closer and they are busy elsewhere.
Does the county pay anything into our police department for that?
They do not.
Oh,
It's
so we'd-
considered mutual aid.
Yeah, we'd receive, okay.
Like, they'll ask us.
So it just, Kind of considering some of the fire department conversations we've had recently and certain things circulating in the media, kind of along the same lines of this, are just little islands around areas where other stations have to come in and service them. It kind of creates an issue with the fire department, and sounds like it potentially with the police department.
Well, currently, as you well know in the discussion we just had earlier, our town eventually will move to municipal fire. And I will use White's Mill Road and the 500 Club areas as examples of what I'm talking about. Right now, Troutman Fire drives past Statesville Fire to answer some calls that's in Troutman District, even though they're not a municipal fire. Likewise, the city of Statesville is passing some of Troutman Fire on the way to answer a call in their municipality. And at this point, we're not municipal, but we certainly have indicated at some point in the time in the future, the fire would be municipal. And this would be one of those examples. In town, the municipal truck rolls up. Out of town, it does not. And we've already see citizen complaints with a couple communities, not Troutman, but a couple communities around, to where municipal fire then uses a volunteer agency to handle their calls, and or volunteers are not, municipal fire won't answer a call next door because it's not in their municipality. And to your point, yes, that's already being discussed, is, well, how fair is this? When somebody's having a heart attack, I don't think they care about all that. They just want somebody here.
So when our curbside leaf and limb pickup goes through this neighborhood, how do they identify those 8 homes and not pick up their leaves and limbs?
That creates extra work on us, and quite frankly, at one point in time, they were not identified, and they were getting up their leaf and limbs, and they were also getting other services such as trash and recycle being picked up because the cans were not appropriately marked, and whoever the route drivers were, if it's out there, they just got it up. I have talked with our leaf and limb pickup people a lot more to identify the homes that are. I'm not saying for one second that some people are not still getting free service, because mistakes do happen. But this would be a situation that it does create extra work for us to say, nope, skip that one and go to the other one.
And are these other 8 lots, I mean, it doesn't matter at this point, but were they identified as the lots receiving free trash services for the last 7, 8 years?
More than half of them were, yes.
Yeah, because it's hard to tell from house to house in the neighborhood.
Correct.
Which one is getting service and which one isn't. Are there lights or anything in this neighborhood that the town maintains?
There is one section that we do pay the power bill for, yes.
Okay. Now, question for the owner. Are you planning to build and move there yourself, or is this a build?
Yeah, the house is basically complete, and so at this point, we're, on our other houses currently in the town, we're not sure, I've got some elderly parents that we're gonna have to, make some more intense, I guess, if you will, care for, to be close by and that sort of thing.
Is there a reason why you don't want to dig a well? I mean, you're not being annexed in, you're, free
Yeah, because
to dig your own well.
our recorded documents with the county won't allow it.
Okay. Did the builder, when you bought this lot, approach you at all when they did their group annexation, when you purchased your lot?
Say that again?
So it sounds like, as I understood it, there were 10 lots sold to private individuals before the builder had annexed in the whole neighborhood.
I
or at
get
least
your
what they
question.
owned.
This was all done before he bought anything.
Okay.
Yeah, so the developer, which was Crescent Resources, that developed that whole section, they put the roads in. There were private roads till just a few years ago when they got taken over by the county. The state. And the developer, put on in the water system, and it was, all the boxes were there when they started selling the lots off, and then they went in the town annexed what they owned after that.
I don't know if our town manager or our attorney can answer the question I have, and it's the elephant in the room question. What's the advantage? What's the disadvantage to allowing this gentleman and the other people to do this for the town?
There is no advantage to the town.
What's the disadvantage?
The disadvantage is we lose allotments of water, even though they're paying for their water, they're still non-town residents. And I realize to a lot of people, they're like, hey, we're all a Troutman community. And I'm not arguing that point. There's several folks that live in the county that still do extraordinary things to benefit our town limits. So I'm not trying to brand anybody as the have and have not, so to speak. I am just saying that our amenities that we have are generally used by people in our Troutman area, but only the Troutman residents are paying for those amenities. The property tax that is then collected because of somebody living close but not in the town limits, if they're in the town limits, they're paying. But if they live next door, they can still use all the amenities just like they were a town resident. Some do that, some do not. They don't use any of our amenities. But the negative to us is we're now losing water capacity that we do have to provide to our residents by statute, that if we continue going forward, and this is what we discussed when the town council at the time changed the ordinance, at some point in time, we are going to have to go up on water rates again because of the allotment fees that we're having to pay for the increments that we get. The two contracts we have, one vendor, it's X amount of gallon, X amount of dollars per thousand. The other one is 25% higher. We have not used any of that water until this year. Now we've had to use that water this year because we do not have enough water supply from our primary vendor, which means if we use 1/10, for example, of the second vendor, City of Statesville's water, compared to our first vendor, that means 1/10 increase, we're gonna have to charge everybody 3% more in water because now we've got to another level. And our system, as we have growth, it is incrementally gonna get higher. We're gonna have to use Statesville as the second vendor more and more. So this first year, to average it out, it's 3%. The second year, depending on how many more customers we connect onto the system, then it's incrementally gonna get higher. That's the worst negative, is everybody's gonna have to pay more. I'm not saying just because him as an individual
Right.
is asking, but it's the quantity of water.
We use
And we have some of these in this circumstance. My heart certainly goes out to them for what they're asking and why, because it's been done. But at the same token, had they built this house when the other ones did, it would be a non-issue. And that's kind of the point that he's asking. Well, I just want to be treated as the same, and I certainly understand that. But on the flop side, at some point in time, we're gonna have to follow an ordinance dead fast and leave it that way without exception.
So what's your recommendation, sir?
I don't have a recommendation. That's why y'all get paid.
Smart man, smart man.
And also for the record, you all do not have to make a decision tonight. This is agenda discussion. If you all come up with questions that you would like for us as staff to answer and or the applicant to answer, that's why it gives us time. So you all can hear from him today and us, and then if there's more questions we can answer, and your actual decision is not needed until Thursday night.
Let's do that. I mean, I recommend the council we do that, Thursday night, give a little time to think on it. I wanna think on it. I've heard what you said, and I would say the one advantage, of course, that may be minuscule compared to what you're talking about, the allotments, which I'm familiar with, would be, triple or double, the outside rate being double. That's the only advantage, however minuscule or whatever, however you wanna look at it. But, the allotments that you mentioned and so forth, plays into it. But again, my heart does, again, like you say, my heart goes out to this gentleman, and it seemed like, a small thing, say, sure, we'll make this one exception, but then, come back, what are you gonna do in the future? So, I'm not saying how I would do Thursday night, because there may be more discussion Thursday night, something said that, would catch my attention, so, but I would like, the rest of the council would agree, I'd like to wait till Thursday night to make the final decision.
I know our town manager doesn't have a suggestion, does our town attorney?
As to making a decision tonight,
No, just in general.
that's more of a policy question than legal.
Okay.
And the one thing I will add to that is decisions that you all make then become something that somebody else later can say, well, you did it here. I do think, the suggestion, Councilman Hinkle suggested, that may give us some protection, and I'd have talked to the attorney on that, for these other lots in that neighborhood that are not built yet, to then send them notice, hey, if you don't have water by this date and time, understand, in the future, it may be. But we kind of set precedent once we make an exception, since that was done, I want to say it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, somewhere in there.
And if I might say that, we were never notified in any way of anything, and it was, you know, like you were saying, if we'd have got a meter 2 years ago or whatnot, it wouldn't be an issue, because we'd be receiving town water
And to your point, yeah, we were not familiar with this, that goes back to 2009 either.
Right,
Yeah.
I didn't know this
So,
existed, so.
Little bit
So,
of,
you know, we just, like I say, I came up here to get a water meter, and they said, you can't get it, we gotta go through this whole process. So, you know, my understanding is it's relatively an unusual situation that's new, but we have owned the lot since 2008, and, you know, like I say, we're in the city now, and we've been contributors to the city, and you know, a lot of things that the city has done with good things, and, but we were just, you know, not notified. So personally, I think that might be a good thing to do, if that's what the council does, is to notify those people.
Yeah, I think my gut says you should annex, but I didn't know this, you know, and so that's mainly why I asked the town attorney, because I didn't know these went out, you know, these letters back in 2008.
Yeah, clearly it's the first time I've seen it.
Yeah, so that's the thing, I don't know what the ramifications of that are.
And we're just like, again, our group, if you will, would be my neighbors, you know, 2 over that receive town water, and, you know, we're in the same subdivision, the same street, and, you know, there's a few speckles in that same section. And again, it's you know, just a matter of, it's not tapping into it, it's already tapped, it's, you know, it's getting the meter in, and, you know, the capacity was there when it was planned back in 2007 and 8 when it was being developed.
Yeah.
That's a very valid point. Our capacity since then has changed drastically. And that was shortly after the first rewrite of the contract that we had, which, by the way, reduced how much water we could get. Had they left that alone, we wouldn't be having a discussion on how much water we can get now. But because of that rewrite, the quantity we could take got reduced by more than half.
So, I got a question about the water meters. They're only good for how many years as we're going through this water meter replacement?
Roughly a million gallons.
Million gallons? So,
Depends on the year.
okay. Who pay, on the out of annexation residents, who pays for those water meter replacements?
We
in
do. That's part of
Maybe
our,
8 to 10 years.
that's part of our maintenance of our systems, is knowing those water meters have to be replaced.
Is
We
that
do.
maintenance billed through the water bill or through the taxes?
Water bill.
Okay.
But there are other tangibles that are through tax. That specific is water bill.
All right, are there any other questions or comments, concerns on this topic? So I do think we had a suggestion from Councilman Hinkle, and wait until Thursday.
I will follow up with their attorney and make sure that legally that suggestion would work and does not put us in a precedent situation, he and I'll follow up between now and then and have that answer as well.
Right, yeah, because that's my concern is what do we do about this? And I'm not necessarily just a legislative one-off is gonna be enough, you know, so I don't know, you know, it may be, it may not. But, you know, the thing, on the other hand, you didn't buy this 6 months ago and trying to,
Right.
you know, jimmy your way into something here either, so I see, you know, I see both sides of the argument, so.
Absolutely.
And again, and these 4 people that we're talking about here, they may have not have been there in 2009, but again, we're showing good faith, the town is, depending on what we do Thursday night, decision we make. We're showing good faith by making the offer to them, putting a finality date on that letter, and that'll give us a cover. You know, from 5 years from now, someone else coming and wanting the same thing.
Right,
Saying
right,
we did
yeah,
it for
'cause
this
you-
gentleman.
Good. Yeah,
Thank you for coming.
Is there anything else do I need to be here Thursday, or is it?
That's up to you, but if I were in your shoes, I would be here. But it's certainly up to you. They may have additional questions that I don't know about before.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks for
Thank
coming.
you all for coming.
Thanks.
That moves us to number 3, and Andrew, if you will, take over. This is an update on our tally combination.
Prior to starting, do you mind if I give a quick introduction?
She needs to stay in the corner.
Yeah.
Please do the introduction, and then I'll open this back up, what we're
Okay,
gonna
sure.
discuss. Come on up.
I wanted to introduce to council our new associate planner. This is Alexa Drum. Alexa comes to us from upstate New York, a stone's throw from Canada, so if.
Near Fort Drum.
Yep.
There might
Oh,
be
Fort
some
Drum,
reaction.
okay.
Mhm.
Very rightfully so. So, Alexa's got a background in architecture and geospatial, stuff. So Alexa's gonna be our technological portion of the planning department. And so I've been happy to have her. She's been here about a month. I haven't ran her off yet, so that says one of 2 things about her. She's either persistent or just not very intelligent. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping it's the first. But I'll turn it over to Alexa just to introduce herself and say hello.
Yeah, like Andrew said, I'm Alexa. You know, I'm just getting started out in my career here, but this is exactly the type of environment that I wanted to be in when I decided where I wanted to move. And you know, I'm coming from all the way from upstate, and I knew I wanted to be a part of a town that has a great sense of community and a lot of growth. And I'm really excited to contribute. So thank you guys for having me.
Welcome, thank you.
And I'll try to get her up in front of you so you don't have to look at this ugly mug.
I've got a question. When I want to address her, do I just say Alexa, or do I say, hey, Alexa? Hey, Alexa, I need this.
T. Ross said he hopes she's persistent working with you. Or me, I'm not quite sure.
I'm thinking more of you, sir.
The one thing that we've talked about is several of you all meet community members that ask us questions. I know I had Andrew and Austin, and we was checking on an unrelated issue off Rough and Loop, and one of the citizens there asked us about the sidewalks on Tally. We've had a couple emails to where some of you all have asked, hey, what's the update on Tally? And just to remind a few people, the parts that I know, and then Andrew will give a breakdown on several things. In early 2016, we as a town had applied through CRTPO funding to get a sidewalk on Tally, and the concern was for a lot of people who walk Tally Road area and almost being struck. A couple accidents in the few years preceding caused some harm. We applied and was quickly zeroed and denied. That package was resubmitted with some homework done to it, and then it went from 0 to the top project to be funded. Unfortunately, back then, it was a significant percentage difference of what the town owed versus what CRTPO would pay. And since then, we've had the dreaded COVID to occur, so all those numbers really are irrelevant. We still only get a certain amount of money from CRTPO though. That means the town will have to come up with what probably is going to equate about 80% of the project now, because as a town, different personnel who were involved with the project left for other employment. it was just a quagmire of failures of different staff members here, not directly attributable to them. I'm certainly not faulting one person who went to another area to work. I am faulting a couple who were here that seemed to be incompetent to be in their positions, that didn't handle this. And Andrew knows which two in particular, but in general, when he got here, we got the project back on and the priority that it was supposed to have. And it's just taken a while to go through the red tape, dot the i's and cross t's. Anytime you're commingling federal and state money, it requires a lot more work and documentation on staff's behalf to make sure that we are doing everything that they want to be done, so there's no malfeasance or any issues with a project. Since then, we also applied for additional funding in different pots of money for Wagner Street and Rumpel Street. Several of you all are quite aware, one family in particular, grandparents, parents, and even the children are starting to point now and say sidewalk for Rumpel Street, but we have known that that was a concern and asked for funding. And again, I applaud Andrew and the work that he did to get funding for those. Having said all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew for an update.
Okay, well, I just want to state that these are what are called discretionary funds, and as the town manager had mentioned, they start at the federal highway, and then they go down to NCDOT, and NCDOT funnels them through the MPO, and it's based on the population of the particular MPO throughout the state. We're fortunate enough to be in the Carpo MPO, which has got the highest population, so we have the biggest pot of money. These do come with a 20% required minimum match. So Carpo opens up the discretionary funding they get each year, and the municipalities are allowed to submit projects. It's competitive, so unfortunately we're a big region, so we compete against as far away as Waxhaw. But we have had some competitive projects, and the Tally Street project seems to be the biggest one that the town is concerned about. But I handed out this sheet for all you of kind of a status and history update. And I wanted to go through just all three of the projects we have, because we do have three. Obviously, I'll start with Tally Street. The downtown sidewalk project is what it's called. It includes Tally Street, Tally Street, Wagner Street, and Rumpel Street. Rumpel and Wagner both go to West, and so does Tally, so it kind of makes sense. It's all the same finishing point. This was awarded funding from CARPO in 2017. It came with a 38% match from the town. The total of the project was about $1.2 million at the time. CARPO would have paid out about $802,000. The rest of it, $491,000, would have been on the town. This was back in 2017. In 2020, additional funds were requested from the town, which totaled $460,000. Now, you may think that's a good thing. Personally, I don't, and I'll tell you why. One, at that time, we had no municipal agreement between the town and NCDOT. There was no consultant hired, so basically the project had not gotten off the ground. So any kind of financial update, any kind of background work, any kind of engineering work had not been done to even determine what a good cost estimate was. And also, another thing I'll add is with the CARPO discretionary project, the program, you are allowed to go back to the well and ask for more funding. However, every time you do, you get dinged. So it was kind of, in my opinion, a little irresponsible to go back with no background information and ask for $460,000, which is basically a drop in the bucket. We're getting dinged for that. But I think we've got enough goodwill with CARPO that if we need to go back, that shouldn't affect us too much. 2021, the town was in danger of losing these funds because nothing had really been done with them. So once the town manager got here back in 2021, he kind of got the ball rolling, got his name in the hat. I started in the summer of 2021. September 2021, we had our municipal agreement adopted, so that was the first step in the process. November 2021, we were finally authorized for the funds for the design of this project. So, again, we started to get this thing moving. And then you can see with this timeline here, the red tape and the DOT, things move slowly. For those of you that were here last year when CARPO gave us an update to the town board, You probably recall Jennifer Stafford, who's in charge of this discretionary program, saying that if you see something in 7 years after getting these funds, that's actually fast. So, this is not a fast track operation. But anyway, I've listed out here kind of the process and where we are. We selected Ramey Kemp as a consultant. In October of '22, DOT finally approved the contract between the town and Ramey Kemp. In August 2023, DOT approved the 30% preliminary plans. Basically, we have a preliminary design now for the sidewalks. In April 2024, DOT had finally reviewed the 65% plans. And these are the plans that determine the right-of-way that you're going to have to acquire. There were some revisions that DOT is requesting from Ramey Kemp, mainly regarding relocation of utilities. And it may be a surprise, but relocating a telephone pole is probably just as expensive as acquiring an acre of property. It's just a very expensive proposition. So Ramey Kemp is currently working with Duke Energy and AT&T to try to avoid moving these poles at any cost, so we can, maybe we might have a little bit of a funky design of our sidewalk, but if we can get something that's ADA compliant and acceptable from DOT without having to move too many utilities, it's going to be a win-win for everybody. Once DOT approves these revisions, we can start having that discussion of right-of-way with the property owners, if we need to. As the town manager had mentioned, since 2020, basically the cost of everything has gone up. So we are on the hook for any cost increases to these projects as a town. I did mention that we have the option of going back to CRTPO for additional funding. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is there's basically 3 different pots of funding in each project. There's the design funding, the right-of-way funding, and then the construction funding. We are allowed to take funding from, let's say, the right-of-way, if we're not done with the design process yet, and we run out of that kind of funding, and shift them. So at the end of the process, when we're ready for construction, we'll know exactly how much money we need. That probably should have been the spot where we went back for a shortfall request, and we still have that option. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room there if we want to go back to CARTPO, which will probably be a necessity. But hopefully with these right-of-way plans, we'll find out that we really don't have to pay too much money for right-of-way. And maybe we can have some generous property owners as well. So, but we should be getting the plans approved to show what we're going to need to acquire, hopefully in the next 6 months. That's the Talley Street.
Andrew, let me question on the relocation of utility poles. Is there not a state statute, or at one time, perhaps it's been changed now, that smaller towns get a break on that as opposed to Morrisville and Statesville and larger cities and towns?
I have never heard that in working with the.
I remember reading something about that years ago with Statesville complaining because they were having to pay, on something in a similar situation.
Sure. Yeah.
They were having to pay extra and some little town like Troutman, I say little town like Troutman, didn't have to pay anything or a reduced rate or something, but you're not familiar with that at all?
No, in working with DOT on this project, they have not mentioned that once.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, very good. Jason, are you familiar with?
I'm looking at it now.
Okay.
Give me a few minutes.
Yes, sir. Okay. I say it was something, an article on Statesville, that I became aware of that, and that's been years ago, so perhaps that statute's not even valid anymore.
Andrew, it says we were awarded in 2017, $802,000. Where is that money now?
That money is, we have it. However, we have to, it's a reimbursement process.
Is it in a very high interest-bearing account, I hope?
It's basically, it's DOT funds. So
Can
DOT
we put
has
into
those
an
funds.
interest-bearing account?
Unfortunately, no, we can't.
It's still in DOT's possession.
That's right.
Oh, so it wasn't awarded to us yet?
Well, we have it. It's a reimbursement process, so as we go along, we send them bills, they give us the money. So
Okay.
we're about $200,000 or so through that money.
Got it.
So,
Okay, I just thought they already awarded us that, and where is it?
yep. And the thing with, when they award these projects, like I said, we had nothing to show for anything in 2021. At that point, DOT and CARTPO both approached the town and said, you know, since you're not doing anything, we're gonna award this money to a different jurisdiction. So that's when we kinda got on, it. We said, we don't wanna lose it. I've broken it out, the Richardson Greenway, this one only required a 20% town match. I guess it was a little bit more competitive when it was scored. I've broken down the same process. This one's moved a little bit slower, but we finally got DOT to approve the contract with Kimley Horn, and I've stapled the schedule Kimley Horn has provided to the back of this. It's kind of small, so if you want a bigger copy of that, I can print that out for you, no problem. But we're finally moving along on the Greenway Extension project. Everything that I mentioned before is the same. 2020, additional funds were requested. This one was $274,000. Again, I think that was premature. Something will be dinged on, but it happened. That's what we got to deal with. Again, we're moving along with this one. Hopefully, this one will move a little bit quicker once it gets started. And the third project that we have funded with discretionary funds is the intersection project that went through last year, Main Street, Murdoch, Old Mountain Road. And this one's actually got some good news. It was awarded funding in the spring of this year, $3.5 million from CARPO, almost $2 million from the town. This does include 40% contingency and an inflation cost, so there's a little bit of built-in protection. But it was approved this past spring, and in August, the North Carolina Board of Transportation approved it as a STIP project. And August 2024, we've already got our municipal agreement adopted. So the federal highway fiscal year begins in October for some reason. That's when we can request the PE funds, and I'll do that on October 1st. So we should get this one rolling pretty soon. So I'm happy that this one is actually kind of moving as it should.
Now, our friends at Wake, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought somebody said. Our friends at Wakefield are going to give us credit for this, aren't they?
I believe we're going to be in discussions with
So
them.
to speak. Okay.
What does soon mean?
Soon, well, that's a good question. From a DOT term, soon can be, you know, I'm retired. But I think
7 years is fast.
Yeah.
When are you gonna be 50?
Yeah, yeah. But I do think as far as these PE funds, I think we'll get those within a couple months after requesting them. And at that time, we can open up bids to get a consultant in and start the design phase of that project. So that one's actually moving along pretty well.
When you say we get dinged, you mentioned that a couple times. Do we get dinged or does the project get dinged?
Well, the project does. So,
Okay, but it doesn't affect our standing when it comes to.
Oh, no, not at all.
Coming for.
The discretionary policy, when you come back for shortfalls, there's certain criteria they look at. One of them is how many times have you been back? And every time you go, you get a check. And then the higher the score for that's when the higher the score, the worse it is. It's like golf. So the more points you get, the worse it is. So every time you come back and ask for additional funding, you get a check or however they weight the equation. But I think, like I mentioned, I think we've got enough goodwill built with them, and I think we'll be all right.
So, is it safe to assume that all projects that try to go back for additional funding, some of those are filtered out before they make it to the board? Because it wasn't presented that way.
Yeah, it really depends on the project and the amount of the shortage you have. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I think that CARPO's kind of buttoned it up a little bit now that they wouldn't even accepted this at this point in time because it wasn't really a legitimate cost estimate that was based on anything. So I remember working for a different jurisdiction and I saw these come across and I was kind of curious why, but you know, at that point it wasn't my
baby,
business.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a check against us, but it's not a death blow.
But we're glad that individual's on his third job since he was here.
Look, can he explain very quickly, and I know we're time constrained, your position with TCC and its importance and how it's helped us progress
for the
over the past few years?
Last 4 years, I've been the vice chair of the TCC for the CARPO.
What does that stand for? Technical
Coordinating Committee, and with that position, you become the chairman of the POC, which which is the Project Oversight Committee. And that's the committee that oversees this discretionary funding. Those of you involved in CARPO are gonna see there's some recommendations to do away with that committee, which I think at this time it's probably a wise thing to do, because with all the policy changes and revisions they've done, it kind of runs itself now. So I'm kind of happy that I've been overseeing that committee while that's happened. But as the chair of that committee, I've been running those meetings for about 4 years, and I've seen projects come through multiple jurisdictions. We have to make the tough decisions every year about December, whether we're going to recommend the project be funded or not. Being the technical coordinating committee, we have to go on technical elements of these projects. So unless there's something we see that's majorly wrong with the project, or the next project in line is asking for $7 million and there's only maybe $2 million left in the pot, we typically go as they come in scoring. So it's kind of started to work itself out. With our Main Street project here, we kind of got in that situation where if we didn't have an $11 million project ahead of us that could have been funded, we wouldn't have gotten funded. But that $11 million project was too expensive, so the next couple that were on the list with the $7 million left moved up. We just happened to be one of them, and that's where we are.
And that's why I wanted you to, you know, he's in a good position to know what's going on, take advantage of the, I say advantage, I mean that in an ethical, legal way, of course, but to take advantage of these situations for the good of the town. And, you know, along with a town manager that's following up on these things as well, we have done more in the past few years than in a number of years before that. So thank you to both of us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you all. You ready for me to move on?
Yeah, if we don't have any other questions for Andrew, I say we move on to our Thursday's agenda.
Roman numeral 2 is the consent agenda, standard there. Only thing that is not standard, number 4. Design Review Board met and recommended approval for a facade change for a Zaxby's at 1132 Charlotte Highway. They did recommend, the Design Review Board recommend that it be approved. Any questions on that? Roman numeral 2, number 5, consider amendment of town Troutman schedule of fees. We have had several emails. You all asked some great questions of us to find and verify from our consultant, West Consultants. Were we in line with some of these fees? There's a couple, I think quite frankly, we are not necessarily in line, if you will, but I also think with our town and the general rule of thumb, these developers should be paying more of the freight. This does allow us, within reason, to charge certain fees and put ourselves in a better position, whether it be replacement or general maintenance. It puts us better in line for our future as we accept a lot of these neighborhoods. We do have inspections during the place, but I will also remind you that there's humans putting them in, there's humans inspecting, and everybody don't get to see everything. So we don't know when we're gonna have one of those $350,000 errors that fortunately for us have only happened twice. One was not an error, neither one was an error. One was a water line that we didn't really know about, burst in January. 350 grand later, it was fixed with streets and everything else. Our most recent was a sewer line due to heavy rains and storms, wash it all out. To fix it back was quite expensive. So fortunately, we have been proactive in getting state funding in some projects that we asked for, that we simply had the reserve to pay for both of these at the time they were needed. But can you imagine if we had 2 of those in 1 year? And that's what these fees does for us. We are not charging any existing customer anything additional, but all new services will then pay these fees. Did you all have a chance to review your charts, and do you all have any questions about those? Austin's been sitting here nervously waiting. to be able to answer all of those questions.
Explain them all in detail.
Really good at that, we don't have.
No.
That's it, I'm out.
I retract my comment.
But thank you all very much.
I applaud you guys because I've seen times when this was not done and we found later that we were actually operating in the red and had to go back and try and play catch up. And finally, after, when I first came to this town and operating on a shoestring budget, we were always behind the 8 ball. We're now in front of the 8 ball, and thank you. I mean, it's what it takes. It is what it is. If those are the numbers, then those are the numbers. The developers, if they want to build here, that's it. If not, then I'm sorry, you can go somewhere else, find it cheaper if you can.
I think one of the questions I got sent individually to me on your point, so if we go up $3,000 on a particular combination of water and sewer, do you think that's gonna make anybody angry? I said, I'm sure they could get angry, but I don't think they're gonna take that whole project somewhere else, because each unit is $3,000 more than what they would have paid last year.
You know, that's our cost. If you can't do it, it's not my problem. Move on somewhere else.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments on
When
that?
does that go into effect?
We voted.
Whatever y'all vote.
Thursday.
Can we move that on the agenda?
You actually can, if you wish to put that under consent account. Oh, wait a minute. No, there's no hearing required. Yes, you can put that under consent. Will you handle that?
It's not consent.
Well, it is.
Are you
Yeah, it's on
asking to
consent,
approve
yeah,
it
yeah.
tonight? Are you asking to approve it tonight?
No,
Is that what you're-
consent.
I think we can do it on consent.
Put it on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Number 6, consider amendment of the town water and sewer service policy. As we grow, we're experiencing some situations where renters do not pay their entire bill owed when they leave. The deposits do not cover the last bill. Increasing the deposit could be a burden to some. So as the town manager and speaking with Austin and Justin, I don't think it's fair for me to recommend a deposit increase for everybody when a very few are the violators of the policy. But what we can do, and what is legal, is we can have the property owners to sign that they are liable for all water bills. That's a risk that they have to assume in their background checks or lack thereof of their tenants. This would not mean everybody's water gets cut off until they sign. It just simply means all of our future hookups, if you pass it, then that has to be the case. Property owners to primary, but the bill is sent to the tenant. Y'all have any other questions about that part?
Well, question, if obviously the tenant defaults, then we notify the property owner, you're on the hook for for whatever it is, the amount of money.
Yes, sir.
And then once another renter in there, he's gonna have to clear it up.
Exactly.
What is the current deposit?
$100 for water, and you got it on the fees? I think it's $100 for water.
Was the last
That's not even one bill.
$50?
Well, for most of our customers, it actually is.
Most of our customers are under $100 a month.
Yes, sir.
Turn the faucet off, Eddie.
What, like
Give me a
80
shower.
80 something is the average, 80, it's high 80s.
70 something.
Was it?
Really? I'm like Eddie, I'm stunned, I would not.
Y'all
I thought
showers
it
are
was a lot
entirely
more.
too long.
Evidently,
Mine's
evidently.
$60 every month except for when I turn the hose on.
$100 for homeowners, $200 for renters.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Austin?
100 for a homeowner, 200 for a renter.
That's what it covers.
When's the last time that was changed?
I wanna say we did that, about 3 years ago, if I recall correctly. Prior to that was 50 and 100.
Okay.
So we're still, as you say, based on average, we're still covered current with that 3-year-old figure. I said, based on current average, we're still ahead with our current 3-year-old figure of, whatever it was, owner and renter, okay. Before we go, can I ask a question? Nick asked a question a while ago about putting the schedule of fees on the consent agenda, am I correct there?
It is on there.
Okay, that's why I was asking if I missed
Yes.
something.
No,
So,
it is.
Okay.
It is.
Because all right, that's fine, thank you.
Number 8, did I skip something? I feel like I did. I did, number 7. Chief will take care of that Thursday night. We have a squad being recognized instead of one individual. Number 8, presentation from Iredell Adult Day Services. Deborah Howe will be here. Roman numeral 4, number 9, ordinance amending the town code of ordinances, regulated obstructions in the public right-of-way. I've talked with a couple of you all, and just simply put, as our town grows, we must understand things like trimming trees should be the liability of the property owner or owners. And let me, well, I'll finish. We as a town are liable if we cut a tree and then it dies or causes other damage because of limbs breaking off. This strengthens our current policy, and it also, citizens will be noticed of this through our normal means, through the newsletter and online, if you all decide to pass it. Recently, we've received lots of complaints from the school system about bus damage that happens because of them trying to drive and navigate certain areas. What we are trying to do is strengthen our policy. Worst case scenario, a school bus meets a trash truck, can both of them get by the trees and the limbs safely without causing either vehicle damage and or the occupants of those vehicles. And that's where we are trying to get it changed to address that issue. You all have any questions of me on that?
I do.
I was just gonna say it's a safety issue as well, but, you're right, it's both property and safety. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
In line with that, and I might have missed it in the code of ordinances, and it might not even be in there, but does this at all address line of sight at like corners, stop signs, intersections with, property owners that have shrubbery placed alongside the road where you can't see past?
This should address that as well. If not, we will have a new motion for you next month.
Okay.
If it's trees, it certainly will. But DOT has their rules on state roads that we can't supersede their rules on that. But on our streets, we can certainly make sure it's the same. If you're looking at that.
I've got one in particular I don't like.
But on a corner, right?
One tree?
Yeah, you can't, it's blind, on Darien Lane, it's blind.
It's dangerous.
Yeah,
It's
I've got a
dangerous.
chainsaw.
Mr. Town Manager, I noticed, and then just a question here, quoting you, looking at your file, it says, when the town, or any member of the staff shall have the attorney to enter upon the property, to perform this work, should you not, indicate also or add, and maybe somewhere else I haven't seen, an indication that, payment for staff or a contractor that we need to hire, would be paid, and if not paid, then a lien would be put on the property. Should we not add that in there somewhere, or is it already in there somewhere I just didn't see it?
I think it's already in our ordinances somewhere else that we're allowed to do the things to collect. But I'll have Andrew and Jason speak between now and Thursday to confirm that. Number 10, Roman numeral 4, number 10, amend the table Troutman Unified Development Ordinance regarding side setback. Andrew, will you explain that briefly?
Yeah, we have a request from Jordan Grant, which is a local engineering firm, asking us to amend the table 2.4 of the UDO to allow for a 0 side setback in the HB district. This matches with our CB and NB districts or other commercial districts. Basically what this is to allow, I would say, units in shopping centers to be able to parcel itself out from the big parcel. So the example I'll use in the map I'll put up at the meeting on Thursday, I'll show the Target shopping center in Mooresville. You can see the parcel lines going basically through where the building ends. It's some of those bigger companies like to buy their own parcels, and this is the case with the Food Lion going in down by the charter school. Building code will have to be met, so 3-hour firewall or whatever they require between the buildings will have to be met. staff is supporting this. Not only does it match up with what we had in our previous ordinance, with our other business districts, I also think it could help from a code enforcement standpoint, where now, if you've got, I'll use the other food line, for example, we have some complaints sometimes about trash and stuff in the back of that. They're all pointing fingers. Now, if we have property lines, we know exactly what property it's on. So, that's the basic gist of, this text amendment, and any questions, just let me know.
Is it shopping center specific, it sounds like to me?
It's multi-tenant buildings, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
But HB?
Yeah, HB, and it'll match what we have in the other business districts. And another thing it will do is this, shopping center down here with Dollar Tree. Right now, the way that this is, it's all non-conforming. That will actually make that now a conforming shopping center.
So you said in the zoning district HB, so does that mean opening the door for condos instead of apartments?
No, this has nothing to do with uses. Nothing to do with uses.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, it had nothing to do with what now?
The uses.
Uses.
Thank you all. Roman number 4, number 11. Consider appointment of the 2 inside voting members. You all met them tonight. If you have any other questions between now and Thursday's meeting, let me know. And as I said when I introduced them earlier, you do not have to pick either one, or you can pick them both or none. That's entirely up to you all, based off of your opinions. Roman number 4, number 12, consider the request for water service at 203 Timberlake Road. You also heard about that one. Unfortunately, I think you're danged if you do, danged if you don't on that one, but I do think we will check with Jason over the next couple days, and before noon Thursday, have you an answer on the legalities of if you decided to allow, does it set a precedence? If you do decide to allow, would that, us sending out that notice, everybody else you got until X amount of time to hook on the water, or you lose that ability to come back and request in the future? Was there any other questions you all had that I may?
I just want to make sure, Terry, was that the nature of your question, your concerns about it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and it's like, that's the thing, I don't know the ramifications of this letter, really at all. So that's, are we bound to it, or?
I don't think we are bound
Right,
as
but
the
just because it
statute.
didn't give a sunset date on it.
Right, yeah, it seems open-ended, you know, so.
Well, there's
like
actually a
the letter-
statute that says one board cannot bind another board. So that being there, I don't know, because business has changed since then, that actually has us indefinitely liable to do that action then.
And that was just, my putting it in black and white with that final date, if that's the way the board chooses to go, would certainly, again, give us cover, legal cover. For
Absolutely.
anyone else coming after him.
Absolutely.
If that was something
Well,
good around.
it would of course back up any decision you would make if someone later petitioned, if you send it to all similarly situated property owners. If they came back later and said, we sent this out, this was your opportunity to do that.
I think that should give us the cover that we need to.
It's my understanding too, that this letter went out when the town was aware that the builder was gonna annex all the other properties in. And this went out to the independent property owners that bought a lot inside of there and gave them the opportunity. Now, they chose not to take the opportunity and the gamble to come back to the town and get water before such policy would change. Well, policy's changed.
I agree with that summary. Any other questions or comments on that? I just want to make sure I'm getting you all the information you have requested or expressed. Other than that, that is our agenda for Thursday. I will close on town. Yes, sir?
I'm good with the agenda. Just a question. When I came in the room, I was talking to Paul, and for the council members that weren't in that meeting involving the fire department, can you share with the rest of us that weren't in what about it? Because I only got some emails.
I will be happy to if you prefer, but what I would recommend is, because that was not a formal meeting, so to speak, is that we not make public comments on it just yet. And I will be glad to summarize and/or meet with you all that could not be at the meeting, and/or Mayor Pro Tem can meet with a couple of you all to summarize basically what was discussed, but.
So, and it's too late now, but can we go into a closed meeting then on Thursday about this?
Yes, because it does involve possible legal action, so we certainly can call for closed session Thursday to discuss with attorney
I'd like to make a
some legal
motion
options.
then that we put that on the agenda.
It's not necessary, we can do it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are
Thank
we
you.
going into closed session today?
Yes.
No, sir.
Oh, we're not?
We're not?
It's on for today.
It is.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's something about property.
It's there.
About what?
Property.
Acquiring property.
Discussion acquisition of property.
Oh, it's not needed, but if you all have questions, we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's,
Thursday, I for sure will have information. Today,
well, this,
I
I guess
think
there's
we
some
can
council
cover what we
members that
can
haven't
today.
really been updated since the
Okay.
last update.
okay.
Yeah.
Certainly, I can do that.
Yeah.
Jason, did you find anything on that situation?
I cannot, I have not. And Andrew, I don't know if you're, how do they do their pricing? Do you know, is there particular statutes that refers to?
I don't know.
I mean, I saw the agreement, the DSG agreement.
Yeah.
But it didn't speak to the pricing.
I know utility companies have a lot of power, so, I'm not sure if we have any idea of how they charge us to do that.
I didn't find anything in the statute dealing with pricing.
I think that was their policy at one point in time. I do recall.
Well, the article referred to it, and it was, one of those from the newspaper that goes back years ago. And it had to do with, the cost of, and they were talking about even back then, that it was expensive. And in small towns, either got it done for nothing or a break from utilities, as opposed to larger municipalities such as Statesville, Morrisville, et cetera.
I may be off base and on a different topic, but some of us in this room are old enough to remember party line days.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what you're referring to is when they decided that that didn't any longer need to be the case and they broke up Southern Bell, there wound up being pots of money for the states, not just for phone service, but also areas that were not getting electric service, for example. That it was unfair to expect customer Smith, who lived 2 miles off the main road, to have to pay X $1,000 for every light pole to his property. That's why it was spread over all the customers. But they gave pools of money to the state for them to be able to do that. That's the only thing that I can recall off the top of my head, that for telephone and electric service, they were allowing them to do the work and then apply through the state and federal government to be refunded the actual cost of whatever it was to do.
It was something evidently, again, it was set up for small municipalities who could at least afford, have work like that done as opposed to major.
And if that's what you're paying the utility company, that's really gonna be up to them. I don't know that there's statutory authority. I didn't find any statutory authority that would dictate how the utility companies bill, but maybe they had their own policy that they.
It's just something that's back in my head, and
Gotcha.
but again, if you can't find it, then, forget it.
All right, so I guess I just need a motion to go into closed
Motion to move into closed session?
Second.
First and a second. All's in favor?